Hello, everyone, and welcome to Proline, the longest-running sports handicapping show in the nation. It's week 4 of the NFL preseason. I'm John Cranton in Las Vegas, joined by world champion handicapper Jim Feist and Jeff Saad of Las Vegas Sports Services. We're going to look at some upcoming games this weekend. Plus, we're going to take some insight on some teams in preseason, how they've played and how that might carry over into the regular season, which is coming up. First, Jim Feist, you enjoyed a 4-2 NFL weekend. Your preseason game of the year didn't quite get there with the Steelers. You did release 2 high roller platinum plays. Perfect 2-0 with the Lions and the Buccaneers Dolphins under the total. That's 22-10 with NFL preseason high rollers since 2011. If you can't make money going 22-10, you need a new financial analyst.
Yeah, maybe we should open a financial analyst business, John. Yeah, we've been red hot. It's been a lot of fun. Probably the best preseason I've had in 8 or 10 years. Usually preseason, well, first of all, it's always about information, and you get the information, then it has to hold up. Some of these coaches change their plans during the game. Like, for example, last week, Kansas City did not expect to really play the game to win it. It was more of a practice session, let me see what we got kind of thing. And then as the game went on, even though Pittsburgh was trying, Kansas City changed their mode of operation and went for it, and they got the victory, so I get a loss on that. But 22-10 is still pretty darn good. The baseball has been really great. We have an offer right now. It's really pretty awesome. 30 days for $30. That's $1 a day, guys. That's NFL, college football, baseball, and a high roller release going tonight when you sign up. That's $30 for 30 days. The high roller release alone, the online package is $500. 30 days, $30. You make the call, 1-866-841-1655. And of course, you can also buy any of our picks right here online. So remember that. You can call the number 1-866-841-1655. It's always cheaper when you call because there's always a special involved. 30 days for $30, 1-866-841-1655. Back to you, John.
All right, Jeff, September is approaching. That's the best time of the sports betting calendar. I know you're on a 10-2 red-hot baseball run. Your top play cashed in Week 3 of the NFL preseason. What kind of specials do you have for everybody to get involved?
Yeah, I'm on a 10-2 run in baseball. My top play of the weekend was a $20 consensus winner with the Redskins blowing out the Bills. And now I'm going to give you 2 weeks. It's 14 days to $14. College football, NFL, baseball, plus you're going to get a high roller release when you call. It's all just $1 a day, 14 days, $14. Just call LVSS at 1-866-575-8916. That's 1-866-575-8916. 14 days for $14. NFL, college football, baseball, plus a high roller release, John.
Okay, we're going to start with our Twitter question of the week. This is how you out there can get involved. You can ask Jim or anybody on the panel a question. You just Twitter us at Twitter at Jim Feist Sports or at Facebook at Proline TV. If we use your question on the show, you're going to be putting a drawing to win $100 a place from any handicapper of your choice. Guys, Carl Huffing of Norfolk, Virginia asks, have any of your perceptions changed based on the way teams have played in the NFL in the preseason? How about you, Jim?
Well, let me preface these comments by this. You have to be very careful not to take too much out of the preseason. There's so many times in the past, and if you've been around doing this, I've been doing this for 40-some years. That's kind of scary to say that. It makes me kind of old. But there's so many times in the preseason teams will go 4-0 and then they'll come out and lay a big egg because they really weren't that good. You know, you get in the second half of these games, most of the time you got players going against, they're looking for a job against really inexperienced young guys that really don't have it all together, and they run up scores and they look better than they really are. But when they get against the real guys, and the opposite is true. Sometimes teams come out and they don't really play at all, and they look absolutely horrible in the preseason, but they're real. an example of that would be Mike Smith in Atlanta. He never really cares about preseason. Andy Reid, when he was in Philadelphia, never cared about preseason. So over the years, you really have to be careful looking at what the preseason means. Now, having said all that, I have to be really shocked at how bad the Raiders look. And when you look at their roster, it makes a lot of sense that they would look that bad. I expect them to be much worse than I ever thought. I mean, this team might win 1 or 2 games the whole year. The Jets are a circus. They have a terrible management from top to bottom, their ownership, their management. They are a train wreck. I don't know why Rex Ryan still has a job as a head coach. If you ever read the book, The Peter Principle, he has been raised to a position of incompetence. Was a damn good defensive coordinator. He's a damn awful head coach. He and Woody Johnson, the owner, have destroyed that franchise. I expect them to have a very poor season. I'd be very surprised if they win any more than 4 or 5 games. Other teams, I mean, you look at the Patriots losing Hernandez, Gronkowski, Welker, but they're somehow a machine. And, you're going to open up against Buffalo. Buffalo's lost their first 2 quarterbacks. They're coming in with a guy that's an undrafted free agent, Tool, and he's actually looked very good. So who knows? You might have a surprise there. That's been happening in the NFL where guys know how to play at the college level and they can bring it into the pros because the college level is playing a lot of NFL schemes. So he might be okay, but I mean, they're going up against a pretty tough team in the Patriots, and that line is all the way up to 10.5 now. So if you like the dog, this is a good time to play it, even though you're getting Tool as the starter. So there's a lot of things that I've seen in the preseason, but I have to take it all with a grain of salt. I will say something about RG3. And I hate to put this on anybody, and I hope I'm wrong because I don't want to wish bad on anybody. I really think RG3 thinks he is invincible. Now, last year should have proven that he isn't. And when the coach wants to rest you to make sure that you're healthy and you fight with the coach all the time about that and you want to get in the preseason, meaningless preseason games, it makes absolutely no sense to me. And they say he's going to start week 1. I'm not sure he's 100%. He might be. He looks like a good quarterback. I don't know that he's going to be a great quarterback down the road because that style of play doesn't work in the NFL. It might work in college. It doesn't work in the NFL. He'll get absolutely murdered by these defensive players. They're big, they're strong, they're fast. And every week he's facing that type of player. So he has to modify his game. If you ask me who to take in the draft right now between RG3 and Andrew Luck, hands down it's Andrew Luck. He's a drop-back quarterback. He's smart. He's got a big arm. He is physical, and he can run when he needs to, but he doesn't do it that often. And, of course, Wilson and Kaepernick, they're all, in my opinion, heads and toes against RG3 in their ability to play the game and be smart about playing the game. So that's what I take out of it so far.
Yeah, a lot of people these days are getting fired up about quarterbacks that can be maneuverable, running and pass. But you got to remember, the NFL, as you mentioned, these guys can get hurt who are running quarterbacks, and having a pro-style drop-back passer has advantages of its own. How about you, Jeff?
Well, Jim says you can't really go by preseason. Sometimes teams can go 0-4 and end up winning the Super Bowl. But the Steelers are a team that right now that I would be concerned with. They're 0-3 in the preseason. Normally that wouldn't mean much, but coming into this year, Mike Tomlin was 19-6 straight up in the preseason. The first team scored its first touchdown last week. Finally, Roethlisberger had a decent game, but the pass protection wasn't very good. They've got several injuries at running back. Their special teams have looked terrible. They've had a blocked field goal, blocked punt, fumbled punt. They had a 190-yard touchdown returned against them. And they already have lost a lot on defense. Casey Hampton, Keenan Lewis, and James Harrison. Palomalu is 32 years old now. He only played in 7 games last year. So in that division, right now, I would rate the Bengals and the Ravens ahead of the Steelers, even though there were some publications that had the Steelers winning it. And of course, the Jets, Jim already touched on it. They have a lame duck coach, lame duck quarterback. It's chaos there right now. Rex Ryan put in Sanchez last week with the backup offensive line. He hurt his shoulder. Geno Smith had already thrown 3 interceptions. The most effective quarterback has been Matt Sims, 11 of 15, 193 yards. Greg McElroy, the other quarterback, has an ankle injury. I don't know how they won the game. I guess because the Giants' offense is just as bad. So I don't know. I think obviously the Steelers and the Jets would be the 2 teams I'd be very concerned about right now. The Jets, obviously, but the Steelers, I'm a little more surprising.
Well, I'm going to say in that same division, the Steelers are in, the Cleveland Browns. I mean, coming into the season, when you analyze the Cleveland Browns, you saw a team that really upgraded on defense, but there were huge question marks on the offense. Well, what we've seen is a pretty good offense. I mean, this team was 19th in passing last year, 24th in rushing the football, so they bring in Rod Chudzinski, a local guy, as well as Norv Turner. Both these guys are proponents of up-tempo attacking offenses. They've been pretty good in their 2-1 record in preseason. Their 2 wins, they scored 27 and 24 points. And then you look at the additions on defense. Boy, they got so much depth and talent up front now with the additions of linebackers Paul Kruger and Quentin Groves. They got a run stuffer in Desmond Bryant. So really, this team should be good against the run and good against the pass, have a good pass rush. And they played pretty well in preseason. I'm not going to say that they are going to win the division, a very tough division, as Jeff pointed out. However, it's a team that could be undervalued and under the radar in September and maybe early October before odds makers catch up. Okay, Jeff, see any other teams that stand out?
That's about it. I was going to talk about the Rams here. Their offense has looked really bad, but Jeff Fisher is a great coach, and I'm not too worried about him. He's another coach like Tomlin who always did pretty well in the preseason, but this year he hasn't. Brian Schottenheimer, of course, is the offensive coordinator. That could be maybe that's the reason his father was always Mr. Conservative, so it could be the same thing here. But the Rams are another team that you might be careful with them, especially the first few games of the season, John.
All right, I got some spread trends for Week 4 to keep in mind. Before we get to that, Jim, do you have any other teams that you want to mention?
Well, I have, I'm very impressed with Seattle, but, I mean, they've been very impressive now for a year and a half, and they come to play, and they have a great record in the preseason, and they last year had a great record in the regular season. Their road record needs to improve, but they have a lot of depth, and they're very impressive. Now, when you go to the NFC, everybody talks about the Packers winning that division, but I see the Packers having problems, potential problems, and they gave up 51 sacks last year. Their offensive line is not that strong. Yes, they have a great quarterback, no question about that. But the Bears now have new coaching, head coach, and offensive coordinator. They also have offensive line issues, but I think their running game is slightly better. They bring in Mark Trestman, who's got a lot of experience in the NFL, high-flying type of offense. If they can protect Jay Cutler, they could be a contender. And the other team that I want to mention, I don't think Minnesota has what it takes. I don't think they have. You can't expect Peterson to have the kind of year he had last year. And Ponder just doesn't look like he's up to snuff to be, the kind of quarterback that's going to win games for you. I think he can manage games, but sometimes you need some place. But the Detroit Lions have an awful lot of talent on defense and offense. They're very dangerous if they can protect Stafford. They're going to be very tough to stop scoring. The question is, can their defense hold people down? And can they stop self-destructing with all the personal fouls that they get in a game? But that division to me is wide open. Very, very interesting division to me.
Okay, we got some spread trends to look at before we talk about a game, which is the Colts and the Bengals. Keep in mind, for Week 4 of the NFL preseason, Seattle, the team Jim just mentioned, 7-0 against the spread run. The Rams, surprisingly, 6-0 ATS. The Lions, 5-0 against the spread. And then you look at the Raiders, Bills, and Falcons. They're a combined 0-15 against the spread in Week 4. All right, guys, we've got a game on Thursday night. The Colts and the Bengals playing. You got the Bengals opening 2.5, up to 3.5 now. The totals come down a little bit, 38 to 37.5. Jeff, you have a little bit of insight on this game. What'd you find?
You know what, the Colts, they opened that preseason with that blowout loss to the Buffalo Bills. It looked absolutely terrible, and the owner came out and said, just pretty much said we had a crap performance, and he went to, said he's talked to the coaches and everything. Since in the 2 games since, the Colts have looked great. I think they were like scared straight or something. But they really looked good the last 2 games. They asked Pagano about Game 4 here, the preseason Game 4, and he said they're still evaluating people. He says he's not going to rule out starting some players, playing some starters. It'll be on a case-by-case basis, and he wants to end the season on a high note. They're going to work on protection for the quarterback. They want to also work on rushing defense. I guess the Bengals are averaging about 170 yards rushing this preseason, and also they want to work on coverage. So they do have some plans for this game. The Colts is usually a Game 4. There's really no game plan. They just want to play the reserves and get it over with. The Bengals are 0-3 the last 3 years in Game 4 of the preseason. All 3 losses have been to the Colts. So this is we're getting 3 points here, 3.5 points. I'm going to lean to the Colts in this game. Jim, what do you think?
I think your analysis of the game is right on. There's really no reason for either of these teams to put up much of a show. They lean a lot on their starting quarterbacks, and they don't have. Well, you got Matt Hasselbeck backing up Lux, so you got a lot of experience with Matt. But on the other side, you really don't. Andy Dalton, Josh Johnson, who's been around, Skelton, Zach Robinson. I wouldn't want to go into the season with any of those guys. I think this is a game where, if the coaches are wise, I mean, all these games are played on Thursday. They want to get enough rest and prep time for their opening games, the games that count. I can't really depend too much on clubs like this, especially when you have, coaches that have questionable incentives. Now, the fact that the owner has wanted Indianapolis to put on a show, especially after being embarrassed in the first game, would make me lean to your side with the Colts. So I agree with you.
I'm going to take a look at the total in this one. The Colts, as you mentioned, really have nothing to prove. They've been great the last 2 weeks against the Giants and the Browns, allowing 12 and 6 points. In fact, that Indy has not allowed a touchdown the last 2 weeks with the starters, and they don't have anything to prove on offense. You got to keep Andrew Luck healthy. They are 2-1 under the total in preseason. Then you got the Bengals. They're actually 3-0 over the total. The offense has been great, scoring 34, 27, and 18 points. However, they don't have much to prove, and when these teams played last year in the finale, Week 4 of the preseason, it was a 20-16 Colts win. That game went under the total, and really neither team showed anything. The teams combined to go 8 of 26 on third down. The Colts won because Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, Chandler Harnish, threw a late touchdown, but even so, it still went under the total. And keep in mind, both teams that game benched 5 starters apiece. So I'm looking at this one as to be a conservative vanilla game under the total. All right, guys, let's get to best bets. We'll start with you, Jeff. Plus, you have that special coming up.
Yeah, my best bet on Thursday, I'll go with the Eagles over the chaotic Jets. The Jets coming off an overtime game on a short week, and, of course, they could have a letdown situation, too. They beat the Giants. They're, rivals. But that's all. I'll go with the Eagles. For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have the college football, baseball, and the NFL. You're going to get 14 days of $14. College football, NFL, and baseball. Plus, you're going to get a high roller release, and this is off of $14. Just call LVSS at 1-866-575-8916, 1-866-575-8916. 14 days, $14 at LVSS.
All right, Jim, you want to keep that red-hot preseason run going right into the regular season. What do you have for everybody?
Well, yeah, we got 30 days coming up for $30, and that's a great package because the way I've been winning, and we're opening the season, we're finishing the preseason. We've got baseball, which we've been red hot, and there's no reason not to take advantage of that. Of course, you can buy picks online here anytime you want, and there's no obligation to. You can use the site for stats and scores and all kinds of trends. But if you want this package, which includes a $500 high roller, it's 30 days for $30. 1-866-841-1655. That's 1-866-841-1655. 30 days for $30. This best bet just jumps off the sheet to me this week, guys. I mean, it's actually pretty easy. Seattle Seahawks, they're going to, look at who they're playing. They're going to win this game going away. I don't know if they give up the score.
They are a cover machine, 7-0 ATS in week 4. My best bet is going to be on the Patriots-Giants game. I'm going to take the road team here, the Giants. And the reason is the Pats are off that blowout loss to Detroit, so a lot of people are thinking, well, bounce back effort. Well, 2 years ago, they got blown out at Detroit, too, and the same situation applied. They didn't show anything in the week 4, and that was also at home against the Giants. They lost the game 18-17 as a favorite. They only had 213 total yards, just 2 of 13 on third down. And when you look at the quarterback rotation for the Patriots right now, Ryan Mallett and Tim Tebow have played below average football. And Tom Coughlin mentioned that he's not happy with the offensive line. He wants to see a little bit more this week against the Pats. All right, thanks for joining us, everyone. Make sure you check out the college football version of Proline. That's at jimfeist.com. We're going to see you again next week, Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific for another edition of Proline, direct from Vegas. We'll see you then.